This was voted on in Texas last year, and 70% of Texans said they don't want this. They forced it on us, and now you can get 2 DUIs before the charge is equal to what it now would be to carry 1 serving of a THC gummy. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Before You Speak podcast, where we thoughtfully deep dive into topics that we think are relevant for the times we are living in. But before we do that, I'm your host, Derek Peterson, and I'm going to process the fire hose of my news feed with this guy somewhere around me, depending on where you're watching this.
Or listening. I am Elwin, and the fire hose of my news feed is coming to you loud and clear through technological improvements.
That's what we try to do around here. Upgraded microphones. That means we're serious.
That's right.
We've been at this. We're coming up on a year marker. We're a few months out from being at the podcasting game for a year, which was our benchmarker to see if we want to continue doing this. How are you feeling about it? You want to think we should keep?
Well, I think we get to take credit for anything that's happened in that year. So because of this podcast, where we've started a world war and killed 1.5 senators.
Sweet. So, yes.
Let's go.
Let's go. You know, we're just out here doing the work of God's work right now. Literally.
Just doing what we can to help.
We're just a vessel. Well, let's jump straight into it. Where's Mitch McConnell? Any update on that?
Oh, he is absolutely brain dead somewhere. I mean, dude, come on.
I made the mistake of posting going at Andy Bashir on Threads, and I got ratioed relatively quickly. But in my defense, I do think that people did not actually read what I posted, because I basically just posted what I talked about last week, which is like, yo, like, you know, smoke the guy out. I know you can't replace the seed. I know there's a bunch of legal, technical BS that you have to go through. Like, literally the entire point of doing it would just be to like fight the way the Republicans fight. And everybody was like, this isn't how we do things, blah, blah, blah. I was like, you know what?
Please.
This is the problem with establishment Democrats and we keep running into this. To be honest, it is the argument of this kind of election cycle, is that like it's like almost like this painful growth of the Democratic Party, where it's like when they get into power, it just feels like not much happens, and we actually have people coming up that are proponents for change, and it feels like they're fighting and you know, like, so we're going to get a message in a few days that just says that, you know, Mitch took a turn for the worse and whatever, which is annoying. And I think Andy Bashir had an opportunity to expose, make another, you know, case for exposing the corruption and the lies of, you know, this administration, and he didn't do it, which is not shocking, because it seems, and he also wrote a letter, which is very in line with Chuck Schumer and the establishment. So,
no, I thought that your take on this was actually right on. You know, and you know, I sent you that tweet that Andy Bashir put out was like, well, you know, right now without McConnell, there's one less vote for nominees and one less vote for the SAVE Act and all this stuff. And you know, he's right. Sure, it's a point, mm-hmm. But no, I think your point is fair. Like, this is a stunt. The other side is pulling a stunt, right? Their stunt is Weekend at Bernie's, pretending that, and they're not even trotting him out to a pool party, which at least Bernie was like at a fucking pool party, right? So smoke the stunt out, you know, say I'm making up my own rule because this is unprecedented. You can take me to court and I'll lose and it doesn't matter. But the purpose of me making up that own rule is to betray the lie, to show you that, like, no. You don't have a guy that you can wheel out.
Yeah.
And absent that, I'm naming someone else and just call him on the bullshit. I think your take is right on it. You shouldn't have gotten ratioed. Bad job by Threads. But, you know, you mentioned something else, and I don't know if this will come up in what we're talking about today, but I was listening to some review about the Michigan election last night, which I know we will talk about. And these folks were they were talking about like what is the centrist Dem strategy in Michigan now. And these people who are like hard progressive lefties, they were like, they might just kind of let El-Sayed kind of flounder, not fully support him, give him tepid, like, yes, of course we're supporting him, but not really throw the weight of the Democratic Party behind him. And because they would rather he fail than he succeed and take the seat. And my God, if that is the strategy of any Democrats, I might be completely out. Like,
Yeah.
you win the goddamn Senate, right? And they were like, "Oh, Democrats prefer to be on the outside looking in." Like, no, win the fucking Senate, win the power, right?
But what was El-Sayed's the reason he won over Haley Stevens was because of his composure and his message. And I really hope, and I don't know, because I mean we're seeing this in Texas right now where Paxton refuses to debate Tallarico, and who knows, Mike Rogers may refuse to debate El-Sayed. But if he does, I genuinely think that's going to be a very fantastic conversation, because the dude is very articulate. He's on point. He knows exactly what his messaging is like, and it's for the people. Like, genuinely, I haven't heard him. I mean, he has said a couple things. The Israel Gaza stuff is just messing up every Democrat right now. And I feel like the more people, I feel like he kind of finally landed the ship on that on the last one. And we'll get into this more later, but in just saying where, like, we're in the US. Like, can we focus on here? Like, can we focus on the here and now? Which was also Jon Stewart interviewed. I don't know if you listened to that this week. John Fetterman on his podcast this week.
I saw some clips of it.
Yeah, which was a fantastic interview. And his take was the same. He's like, Fetterman was, all up in arms. He's like, the main issue for me is Israel, Gaza. And Jon Stewart was like, but we live here. So like, and not to take away from like the overarching, and I know that it's more complicated than that, but I still feel like, when we're talking about healthcare and immigration reform, and there's so many things that impact us directly. The war in Iran, which I know is tied to all of that, but like, let's focus on the stuff that impacts us directly right now.
Yeah, I mean, sure, except,
am I wrong on that?
wrong? No, not. I mean, you're correct in that. We have plenty of things domestically to worry about, right? But I think that to the extent you're saying that El-Sayed is like, finally was using a scalpel for anything when it came to sort of APAC funding and stuff like that, that's incorrect. He was a blunt hammer where he answered every single question, literally every single question, by turning it back to the amount of money that APAC was spending to beat him. That's not a finally landing anything. That's beating the shit out of, look, money in politics. Yeah, that's part of it. And APAC was the biggest source of money against him in politics. No question about it. And that's legitimate. That money in politics argument is legitimate, but can we focus on healthcare without blaming our lack of healthcare on Israel? I feel like we can.
Yeah, and you're not wrong. The APAC thing, I think the APAC thing came up big because they were backing Haley Stevens so much. But, like this, the flip side of this is it's going to come out like every super PAC that's coming out for Republicans. Republicans fundraise at a level that is like unheard of compared to Democrats, at least in the last, 5 or 10 years. The amount of money is just not even close. It's like, I think actually the DNC, I think, is in the negative at the moment. And the RNC is like, has like 200 million. It's just, It's bananas. So, but, we'll get more into the election stuff in a minute. I wanted to talk a little bit about do you think, so it sounds like the Republicans have flipped the ones that were holding out on the Todd Blanche confirmation. Do you think that's going to end up going through?
I do. I think the last chance is like this deal that he said he made, or when he said that the settlement or the audit immunity for the Trump family was dead. It seems like in the legal documents that were actually filed, it's not actually completely dead. There's some question about it. But it's just, for every spineless fuck on the Democratic side, there's a brother. There's a brother from another mother on the Republican side, right? And in this case, it's Tom Tillis and it's John Cornyn, and they're giving shelter, by the way, for Susan Collins, who has the room now to vote against him. But John Cornyn, he was, no, I'm not going to do it because of the slush fund and the tax immunity and stuff like that. And then yesterday, after he voted to move Blanche out of committee, he was like, well, what can we really do to rein in the president? Like, you could vote no. Like, that's what you can do. You can fucking vote no, man. Like, what kind of answer is that? And Tom Tillis, just same thing. It's just disgraceful the way these guys just fold. And God knows I've yelled about them folding on the Democratic side. And this is just the Republicans just falling in line for the kingmaker.
Yeah, but Cornyn doesn't make any sense. Like that's the part for me that is brutal, is that, dude, he got primaried because of Trump's endorsement. And then he falls in line, which this to me, and I was listening to the guys on Pod Save America talk about this, and none of them actually said the thing, which drove me crazy. I'm like, that these fuckers are getting paid after the fact. The only way any of this makes sense is if there's a deal for Cornyn to get a bunch of money once he's gone to continue to vote and be a part of this. Because in any other world, somebody else kicks you out of your job and takes it. There's a giant middle finger that you're trying to stick to him. So like there is only on the other side of this, there is incentives for him to fall in line and continue to do what he's doing, or none of this makes any sense. And so it drives me crazy when I hear people talk about this in like this complicated, like, well, this could be why no, it's money. It's money. It's the same reason why all of them are doing it. He's getting paid somewhere.
It's money or spineless. It's one of the two. It's not some, like, I don't even know what a third option could be, right? Some like moral stand on the way out that he was the guy who, got Blanche to drop these things in order to get confirmed. Like, Blanche is on record. He was recorded saying that he wants Dobbs, the anti-abortion decision, to be the law in every state, right? Trump has always said it's up to states to decide. Blanche, soon to be Attorney General of the United States, wants it to not be up to the states to decide. He wants that to be a national decision. He was recorded saying as much. He's going to go after mifepristone and, abortion drugs that are shipped by mail. In Texas, the Republicans are already banning IVF, right? Like, this is when you clear the way for Todd Blanche, you are not taking any moral high ground if you somehow want to sell me that the Trumps can now get their tax returns audited. Because first of all, I don't believe that what Blanche signed holds water. I think that they'll do whatever they want once he's in. And second of all you did was, like, I don't know, open the side door for the wolves to go into the hen house.
Yeah.
Instead of opening the front door. Like, either way, the wolves are in the hen house, so I don't give a shit how they got there.
Yeah, I'm still of the mindset that all of this crypto stuff going on is for this exact reason, is to continue to find ways to pay people with and get what they want in any facet and across the country. And I wish we could do an audit of these dudes' finances and all their holdings, including crypto holdings, after they leave office, because I can almost guarantee you Cornyn's getting something for this. There's no way in my head that he's not. So which it drives me nuts. Which also, I think since we're talking about Texas for a second, I think it's important to bring this up. They just passed the THC ban in Texas because, Abbott, Paxton, and then what's the other dude?
Dan Patrick.
Dan Patrick, not to be mistaken for the great Dan Patrick of ESPN, who is also hilarious. The terrible
that
Dan
confused
Patrick.
Me for 2 years.
Yes,
yeah,
the awful Dan Patrick. This was voted on in Texas last year, and 70% of Texans said they don't want this. They forced it on us, and now you can get 2 DUIs before the charge is equal to what it now would be to carry 1 serving of a THC gummy. it's complete horseshit. If you had an entire plate of pot brownies, that's a life in prison. Like, this is the dumbest thing I have ever heard in my life. And again, like, all of this stuff, it just comes back to money. On the back end of all of this stuff, it just, somebody's getting paid out somewhere and they're just stepping over all of the people and what the actual people want to line their pockets. It's the most corrupt,
the week.
Go ahead.
Sorry. The week before, or last week, the alcohol and beverage industry lobby gave Dan Patrick and Ken Paxton a whole bunch of money. And of course, who suffers if people are buying THC drinks or CBD drinks? The alcohol industry. You know, so yeah, and it is like, it is deeply undemocratic because we did vote on this, right? And it's not even a year past the vote where, you know, the state legislatures are just completely overrunning the recently expressed overwhelming will of the people in Texas.
Yeah. So, like, can we just, like, point out again, like, I'm so sick of them being Republicans, calling us fascists and communists. Like, what they're doing is literally the exact thing. They literally went against the vote of the people to institute a policy that actually oppresses the people. And I have not talked to a single person in Texas that's like, yeah, I'm for this. Even my Republican buddy was the one that texting me back and forth different memes about that, and then the Mitch McConnell thing, which I texted you earlier, which is also hilarious. I think the last thing we want to jump in on the news, though, is this reflecting pool thing, because Jeanine Pirro gets blasted by Trump because, she can't lie in court. That's everybody else can, but she can. So she has to come clean and basically be like, yeah, the guy that knelt down and stuck his hand in the water did not have a box cutter and did not cut a 350 foot. The best is now that you've seen some of those videos released, you're like, there's no way humanly possible that this happened.
Well, also, like, there's cameras on the reflecting pool all the time.
Yeah.
Right. There's public cameras that are always on the reflecting pool. Someone cut that this made it this far, honestly, is like an indictment on the media who were on this a little bit, but why wasn't somebody like, bro, where's the video of somebody cutting a 350 foot long slash in the water? Right. Because it was in the water. So somebody would have had to, by Trump's story, someone would have had to jump in the water, bend down, put a knife in the water, and walk the length of 3.5 football fields, cutting the whole time. That's like a 10-minute walk.
It's longer than that in water, dude. Like, that is
somebody would have been like, dude, that guy's cutting a long slash. Should we do something? Like, this would have been all over social media.
Dude, not only that, and we were underneath that is concrete. He's going to need like 4 or 5 blades. Like, that first blade is only going to make it like maybe 10 or 15 yards. He's got to replace that thing every so often. Like,
and Trump is still on it. He's still today on this shit, you know? And it's just, I don't understand why there's not some reporter that's just going, what the hell are you talking about? Like, show us the video. Show us a video of somebody walking 350 feet or 350 yards and slicing this thing open. Because you know what there is video of? Trump's entire motorcade driving on the emptied out, recently resurfaced reflecting pool. Tons of vehicles driving on the reflecting pool to like show off how great it was. I wonder what might have caused, rips in the surface of the reflecting pool. But the Pirro thing was like especially interesting because I don't know if you heard yesterday, like he called Pirro in, and Interior Secretary Doug Burgum, and he likes to do this. He likes to get 2 people in the room, get them yelling at each other, kind of Hunger Games type shit, right? So Pirro, apparently, she knows from Fox. She knew what was coming, and she came in fucking ready for war, like a whole briefcase full of documents showing that it was the Interior Secretary's fault that all this happened, that this whole thing went haywire, because she knows she's fighting for her job. And That's probably why she hasn't been fired, because she won she won the ability to keep her job in that fight. But also, like, this was reported with multiple sources, this Oval Office meeting. So it's like the day that it happened, a couple hours after it happened. So it's just fascinating to see, like, it had to come from Pirro.
Yeah.
Right. Pirro had to leak this out to multiple people and have everybody be like, yeah, no, tell the press what just happened.
Yeah. Dude, this is the world that we're living in, and this is what drives me nuts. This is why the claims of fascism are legit. Dude, we can literally have no video evidence and an administration that's telling us that some innocent dude, some Olympian, cut this pool. Meanwhile, we have a ton of video evidence of ICE agents shooting U.S. citizens and killing them in our streets, and we're told not to believe it. This is fucking insane. Like, where we are at as a country is insane right now. Don't believe this, which you see with your eyes, but believe me that this dude cut a 350-foot gash with a box cutter down in the water of a reflecting pool, and we have no evidence of it, and we're not giving it to anybody. Like, it's upside down, dude. It drives me bananas.
Well, you know what the last line in 1984, the book is. I'm going to mangle this, but it says the party's final and most essential command was to not believe what you see and not believe what you hear.
Yeah.
Right. So that they can believe what they're saying, not what you're seeing.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it is. Like, but I don't understand why Trump is still like, just stop talking about it. You look like an asshole.
Well, he doesn't, though. That's the thing, is for some reason he gets away with everything, and I will never understand how. I will never get this, but it's the world we live in, and half the country voted for it. So apparently this is still our problem. All right.
Clearly, yes, very much.
Apparently,
very
it's
much
only
so.
our problem. It's only the people that voted against it that are like, yeah, we don't want this still, which is mind-blowing. I'm curious if the country just in general, if everybody just aligned with Trump, like how quickly everything would just be complete shit. Like, how long would it take for literally everything to be run into the ground? Because that's literally what would happen. It would, the fact that there's no push pull, there's no, the only thing that keeps any semblance of balance, because they would just hoard we'd turn into Russia, where that's, 50 people have all the wealth. I mean, yeah, okay, fair point.
I mean, probably a conversation for a longer day, right? But like, we've had law firms capitulate. We've had the media capitulate. That individuals on an individual level, there's 65% disapproval of his presidency is great. It's wonderful, but the institutions that matter, almost all of them folded right away. The only one, frankly, the judiciary has, outside of the Supreme Court, most of the judiciary has held strong. Like this, he wants states to turn over voter rolls, right? That's something that he's always talking about. So 20 states have now been sued, or that action has been sued in 20 states, and it's lost in all 20, right? The courts in all 20 cases have said, no, you do not have to turn over the voter rolls. That is state information, not federal information. So, you have some backstopping in the courts, which is good, and you have the people turning against him, which is also good. But, as long as you have the media just glossing over the shit and simping for him, and as long as you have law firms and businesses who are just chasing the buck right now, the instant buck, then how different is it from what you described?
Yeah. It's not that different, but, and also, like, I kind of escalated the beginning of this podcast because it gets into what we're talking about now, which is going to be, these primary results, which is, having people in the electorate that are going to actually fight for the people, and like and how crucial this actually is right now. And again, why my frustration with Andy Bashir and like Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, all these guys not living up to the moment, and because this moment requires something more. The establishment Democrats do not understand the moment we're in, because it genuinely feels like that, because we're being, anybody that's not getting fed the red pilled algorithm is looking at this situation and being like, what the fuck is going on? So, I think it's important that we talk about this. So, which leads us into our first discussion about, what happened in Michigan last night. Abdul El-Sayed wins over Haley Stevens in a pretty close race, which
much closer than what was expected.
Yeah, I think before this, a lot of people thought El-Sayed was going to win by a couple points, right? At least.
The polling average on Real Clear Politics was of the last month's polls had him up winning by 13.
Yeah,
there was not a poll. There was not a poll within under 10. There was not a single digit poll in the last month, and it's a 1-point race.
Yeah. I mean, when I went to bed last night, I was like, oh, she may come back and win this. So, which was interesting. But so what do you think? I mean, give me your take just overall on your thoughts on this, his winning, and how the Democrats are viewing this, and go from there.
So I think the closeness of it is actually it's a decent story. Why did the polls miss, and what does that mean about who the campaigns had access to, in a sense? Because El-Sayed ran a very strong ground campaign. They made millions of phone calls. They knocked on hundreds of thousands of doors. It was an incredibly well-run campaign. Hassan Piker, the podcaster, he was helping call people. He was spreading the word. And the areas and the people that he reached out to, he won big. But the areas that he did not reach out to, older people, landline people, nursing homes, people like that, Stevens won huge. So the closeness of this is interesting going forward. Now, I think outside of the sort of, and we'll talk about the APAC and the money and politics angle, because that's extremely relevant too, this is now the biggest test for the DSA progressive left by far.
Yeah.
This is one where, this is a battleground state. This is a seat that, I'm optimistic about the Senate without Michigan, but with Michigan, the Democrats taking the Senate looks a whole lot better.
Yeah.
And this is a race where he's not going to be favored. Now, a good candidate can come and win. And I don't think Mike Rogers for the Republicans is a very good candidate, but this is now like a litmus test. So, how far can these candidates go? How far can the Mamdani DSA progressive left candidate, who is virulently anti-Israel, how far can they go? Can they win a competitive Senate seat?
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll see.
We'll see, especially because, I mean, I guess, AOC's in New York, right? And not in the Senate. She's a
congressperson.
She's a Congress. Yeah. So there's it's interesting to see other than, and Bernie's not in the Senate either, right?
Yeah, he is. But
he is.
I think I know where you're going, which the Elizabeth Warrens, the Bernie Sanders, the AOCs of the world, the left wing, the current left wing in power in either the House or the Senate, because we're really talking about the Senate, they're coming from lefty, blue plus 30 states.
Yeah.
New York is voting for a Republican, voting for a Democrat for president by 30 points. Vermont by 30 points. Massachusetts by 30 points. Michigan is flipping every election by 80,000 votes. So yeah, there's room, and there's an obvious path for Bernie Sanders, for Elizabeth Warren to win a Senate seat. That's not a big deal, right? Nobody's surprised when that happens in those states. But in Michigan, with a type of candidate that is new, right? Like Bernie Sanders has been around forever. Elizabeth Warren has been around for a while, but there's no question that what El-Sayed represents, what Mamdani represents, even what AOC, even though she's been around, what they all represent is different in tone and in look than Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. So how does that play? Not in a deep blue state. How does that play in a deep purple state? We're about to find out.
Yeah. And the things that they're talking about are in general, like the DSA platform, like, yes, there's a bunch of dumb stuff on it, but we talk about this regularly, like, Medicare for all, universal child care, public, helping public schools, like public infrastructure, like all of the things that, like, if you actually talk to even a Republican, most of the time they're going to be like, yeah, like we want all of these things. And I think the messaging that's starting to, and I think the messaging that needs to continue, I think for working class people, and Tallarico coined this, like he was probably the first person to articulate it in the way that I think that it needs to be articulated, is just that, we're fighting against the wrong 1%. We're fighting, like, they want to make the trans people the problem. They want to make the immigrants the problem. They want to make but the real problem is the people with all the money, because the people with all the money lobby and get all the laws passed for themselves, which is what is actually oppressing the middle class. And so the messaging around corruption and going after, like, money in politics and overturning Citizens United, like, it is so good to finally hear some of this messaging come through. This is stuff me and you, even when we first started this podcast, that we started that was like hot out of the gate. I think Citizens United was one of our first episodes, which was, like, this stuff is really important. And it's, if I'm being honest, this is what actually changes our country. If we really want to see change in our country, we've got to get the money out of politics so that people are actually making decisions for their constituents, and that tension is welcome. Like, it's not like, I will welcome the tension with somebody that disagrees with me on my views on abortion, that disagrees with me on my views on, Medicare for all, that disagrees with me on my views for public health care. The fight I don't want to fight is somebody that actually doesn't disagree with me, but they're getting paid to disagree with me, or they're getting paid to go a different direction, because that's a battle you'll never win. Like, and it doesn't serve the people at all. It serves whoever's paying them to have that view.
Yeah, I agree with everything about money and politics. I don't think that I go quite so far as to say that because someone is backed by a PAC, that is why they have that view. I think that's a little too binary a statement to make, but that being said, the amount of money in politics in this election, in El-Sayed's election, he got outspent, if you count all the PAC money, something like 11-1. I think it was a little less than that. I think it was like 67 million in outside money came in for Haley Stevens versus like 7 million for him. And of that 67 million, this is an issue, APAC was about half of it.
Yeah.
And APAC probably has a whole host of concerns, not the least of which is the fact that, when they asked him about October 7th, his response was, people who get hurt are going to hurt people, right? Which is a very permissive take on what Hamas did on October 7th.
Yeah.
That's beyond permissive,
yeah.
Right? So there's the money in politics thing is a real problem. And that's a lot of what this election was about, was him saying, I am against the money. I'm against the money. It just happened that he always named APAC, which is like, why are you always naming APAC? It's like, why is that such a bad guy? But look, Texas, the governor, I think Cornyn has 70 million. Gina Inhofe has 3.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing, though, is, what could we value the amount of unpaid media that El-Sayed got, that Trump got in 2016 and 2024? right? Like when you have a Hassan Piker out there talking about you every single day and making calls, and the news is following this race every day for a month, right? That has an incredible amount of value. So,
Yeah.
it's, I don't think, I feel like the right solution is like you get 8 weeks to campaign. Like you can't make campaign speech. You can't do shit for 8 weeks until 8 weeks before the election day.
Yeah.
And
And
then it's
even
all
limit
holds barred. I mean, no
yeah.
holds barred.
And then limit, like, look, you can fundraise up to a certain amount. Like, like let's say 20 million is the number. So every candidate can fundraise up to 20 million. Where you get the money, like we don't even have to regulate where you get the money. If you want APAC to fund your entire 20 million, okay, like it's just disclosed, right? But like if you give everybody the ability to stop at a certain number, and if you can't fundraise to that level, that's your problem. Like that probably means your messaging isn't strong enough. But like, like Texas has a different problem. Texas's problem isn't as much APAC as it's going to be the Christian nationalist billionaires that
Sure.
the oil money and the different PACs that we have here. So I think, I think the El-Sayed problem with, and this is also my struggle with the APAC thing right now, because it comes up so much, and it's such a deep conversation. Like it's such a conversation that, like, you just talked about how permissive it was for him to like brush it off with a sentence, right? And I listened to an entire podcast where Jon Stewart unpacked this with John Fetterman, and it was an hour and a half long, and they still didn't get to the root of like there was still stuff missing in all of that. And that's the struggle, right? Is that what's going on with Israel and Gaza and Iran and all of this stuff? It's so complicated and requires such like intentional dialogue that, like, to answer, it's almost unfair to have that question asked in general in a short form setting, in a place where you have to give a sentence or a few lines to answer it, because it's like no matter what you say in that moment, you're going to piss somebody off because you can't unpack the nuance of your answer in a full conversation, and that unfortunately it is.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that kind of answer, like that kind of answer that he gave, which is, people who got hurt are going to hurt other people, and his just constant railing against APAC. There's a guy who's a popular reporter. He's been around forever, Jonathan Chait, and he did a piece on how every issue, every question that El-Sayed was asked, he would turn it against APAC, every single one. Healthcare, public funding for schools, whatever, it didn't matter. It all came down to APAC. And Jonathan Chait asked El-Sayed about that, and he turned it about APAC. And it was like kind of this like, okay, like what are we doing? What's the boogeyman? Like we're clearly creating a boogeyman here. And, there does create a little bit of a permission structure for, anti-Jewish feelings to slip through the cracks here. So, you have this now reckoning that's all wrapped in. He's the avatar for this kind of reckoning that the Democrats have to have. How do they handle the DSA? How do they handle the progressive left? John Fetterman, his take in that interview with Jon Stewart was form your own party. DSA, don't call yourself a Democrat if you're not a Democrat. Well, that's just fucking stupid. Stewart's response was like, well, what about the Freedom Caucus? Is right on. It's like, no, you're the Democratic Party. These people are running as Democrats. They are part of your party, and they stand for a lot of the same shit that you stand for. But they also don't like you very much, and they're really mad at how you've been treating them for 10 years now. The Democratic Party has been treating the DSA like the redheaded stepchild. They took the election from Bernie Williams in 2016. They did. Yeah. It's just fact, right? They didn't necessarily take the election from Bernie Sanders in 2024, but they didn't give Bernie Sanders a chance. They definitely anointed Biden in 2020, right? They got Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg to drop out right before the South Carolina primary so that the road was clear for Joe Biden. So the DSA is going like, fuck all you guys. Like, we are going in. You can't take this from us now, right? We now have New York City. We've got the Michigan Senate, right? We've got the Maine Senate. We've got all these candidates. So you centrist Democrats, you have to figure out what to do with this, right? You can't eat your own. You have to figure out how to heal old wounds that are, still very, very live, and somehow create a platform that works in a different way in different states, right?
Yeah.
What works in Maine for Troy Jackson is not necessarily going to be the same thing that works in Michigan for Abdul El-Sayed, right? And it's probably the other way around, right? What works for Tallarico in Texas is absolutely not going to be the same thing that works or doesn't work in Michigan, right? So the Democrats have to kind of figure this out. Like, why are people voting for these people? They're voting for them because of universal health care, because the rent is too damn high, because everything is too expensive, because they can't buy a house. They're voting for them because they've been lied to by the mainstream Democratic Party. If you're 26, you've been lied to from the mainstream Democratic Party for 10 years. They've been taking your voice away in an underhanded way, and you are pissed, right?
Yeah.
And they're voting for these guys because these guys are the ones that are out there saying, blow the whole fucking thing up and rebuild it, which is how Trump won twice. And the Democrats have to just have to come to reckon with the fact that centrist Democratic policies are not awful, right? It's not that, the defund the police stuff that exists on the left, in the DSA, that's stupid.
Yeah.
Right. I fear tremendously that the permission structure for, killing Jewish people is being created on the left. It's always been there on the right. This isn't a left only problem, but it's the foundation is being laid for bad things to happen to Jewish people through the permissiveness of the DSA when they talk about Israel. The centrist Democratic Party has to figure out a way to thread the needle, but you have to thread the needle. If you're going to call yourself a big tent party, you can't kick these people out of the tent, especially when they're the fucking ones that are winning elections. And conservative commentator William Buckley said, how conservative do you want? What's the limit on how conservative a candidate should be? And he goes, I want the most conservative candidate that can win an election. Because you can't do shit if you don't have power, right? So I want the most progressive candidate that can win an election, right?
That's a great way to put it.
I'm gonna do the Republican bullshit, Islamophobia thing. Not that I'm Islamophobic, but can Abdul Rahman Mohammed Al-Sayed win an election in a purple state on progressive policies? We're about to find out.
Can you put a phone call into Netanyahu and just tell him to chill the fuck out for a while? Like,
Lisa, she's not as a fan of Mamdani, and so she sends me some stuff that I might not see. And she sent me this thing on Monday that he put together, like a judicial commission of 18 people that he said is going to reflect the diversity of the city. This is New York City. There's not one Jewish attorney and it's all attorneys. It's 18 attorneys. There's not one Jewish attorney in New York City in this 18. Right. And, she sent that to me and I was like, okay, that's pretty bad. It's hard that
I was
can't
say,
happen
like,
by accident. But also I was like, God damn it, Netanyahu and Israel, don't you see what you're causing here? Like, don't you fucking get it? Right? This shit is a backlash to what they've done. And it's like, God damn it. There's no safe place.
He's leveraging Trump to basically, like, this was the move, right, for Netanyahu. Like, because if the Democrats get back in power, like, I think a lot of this gets, like, the funding and different things. I mean, they're going to struggle. They're going to struggle to get much from the U.S. beyond that, at least in the current iteration, unless Israel takes over new leadership and it's somebody that, like, can rally behind the U.S. and we can build new relationships. But I think Netanyahu has pretty much fucked his relationship with most of the United States, which sucks. Like, especially having a bunch of Jewish friends, like, it sucks to see the struggle that they're innately thrown into by decisions that were not their own. So, but let's talk a little bit about the ballot initiatives. And I know you wanted to bring up Kansas and Missouri, some of the stuff that's going on there.
Yeah, so this was good. There was a bunch of good stuff last night. El-Sayed might be good. I think El-Sayed might have a better shot against Rogers than Stevens would. So who knows? But in Kansas, there was a Republican-led initiative to make the Supreme Court a Supreme Court justice an appointed position rather than an elected position. And Kansas was like one of the first states to protect abortion rights after Dobbs. It's surprising, but Kansas has been kind of on the vanguard of protecting, of being states' rights, of letting the state decide its own thing, and of protecting abortion rights. So this Republican initiative to have justices be appointed was really a direct response to that. Like, cool, we want to be able to appoint justices that are Republican because there's pretty much always a Republican governor, or certainly always a Republican House and Senate in Kansas. So we want to get the fucking Democrats out. Ballot lost, I think, 60-40 at least. In Missouri, they have a process where if enough citizens sign a petition and go through the process, you can have a citizen-led ballot initiative. So I don't know if this actually happened there, but I think a common ballot initiative would be to like restore the voting rights of felons who have served their time. Right. To say, okay, they've served their time. They can now go ahead and vote once they're out of prison, and, whatever, different states do it differently. That's usually a ballot initiative. So a bunch of citizens get together, they get backing, they have enough signatures, and that shit gets on the ballot in November, and then it passes or it doesn't pass. Well, that being a good expression of democratic values is, of course, kryptonite to Republicans in a state like Missouri. So they put up a ballot that would have ended that type of ballot initiative, and it lost 80-20.
It fucking
got
fantastic.
Demolished. Yeah.
And the beauty of that, and what I love about those ballot initiatives, is that your voice gets heard. Like the people's voice actually gets heard. And I'm starting to really like lean into this. It feels like this is as far as voting goes, this needs to be the fix. Like our votes should be heard. Like in any situation, like if you're voting for something, this is why I hate the Electoral College. It's why, people complain about, like if you're if you're a liberal in a red state, your vote doesn't matter in certain elections. And like that shit sucks. Like this is because like the majority of in my opinion, this country should be ruled by a majority. Like if a policy gains enough traction for the majority of the people to view it as something that should be done, then that's how and I'm not saying majority is like, white people, meaning like the majority of most initiatives are going to actually be blended all cultures and all peoples, right? Like it's going to be something that actually makes sense to men, women. Like, dude, I mean, come on. Yeah. Disagree?
No, but yeah. I don't disagree with there being opportunities for more direct democracy. I don't disagree with that. And something like a ballot proposition led by a citizen movement is a great way to respond, in a sense, to an unrepresentative legislature, right? Where if the legislature passes some laws that you don't like, okay, well, fuck you. We're going to go direct. We're going to influence this directly through a ballot initiative. But, tyranny of the majority at the expense of the minority is a real risk, right? That is a thing. And that is a thing that this country has particularly been victimized by. So like if you put up why I'm shaking my head and why I'm, digging in that there's a limiting factor here is like, if you're a trans person, you don't want that shit. You do not want the majority ruling on your rights, period. You're going to lose every time.
Fair
right?
point.
If you're a gay person, you're a little worried. If you're a minority, you're a little worried, right? Like, so, and that is why we have courts also, right?
Yeah, but don't you think that
rights?
but don't you think that the majority of people would still so the majority of people I still think are in favor of and to be honest, I think are still relatively reasonable. So like when you think about the majority, like in a trans rights case, like I'm not somebody that's I'm not trans. I have no stake in that race or no horse in that race or whatever. And so, but in general, my belief is that more freedoms for more people is better. So like the majority, I feel like
you have a daughter that plays sports.
Yeah, but I'm not one that's going to give a shit if it's I mean, maybe in wrestling, if like, that might be the boxing, might be like the only two that I would be like, but then if I'm being honest, I would probably just tell my daughter to forfeit that match if she didn't want to do it. Like, like rather than make an ordeal out of it.
No, and I know, and I'm not ascribing that to you, but what I'm saying is that, first of all, no, I don't think that the majority of people are quite as enlightened or woke as you'd like to think. But I'm probably just more pessimistic about it. But to take that pessimism out of it,
Texas will do that to you.
Oh yeah, and people have to vote, right? Like, you're not talking about the adults in the United States. You're talking about the voting adults in the United States. In 2022, the last midterm election in Texas, turnout was 47%. In a presidential election, 2024, turnout in Texas was 56%. Who's doing the voting, right? Like, that's what matters.
Yeah.
It's not the majority of people in the country. It's the majority of people who vote. And I don't have any faith in the majority of people who vote. I have hope, but I don't have faith ever.
That's I mean, I guess fair point. I grew up optimistic, and I think I've slowly been I've been losing it a little bit every year ever since then.
I'm getting there with you. I want full blown, no faith in humanity. No, Derek,
well, we all also wanted to talk about Ohio, and if you want to actually get me pissed off, get me going on Max Miller. But
before we go to Max Miller, because I think we'll cook on that. Did you hear about the guy in Michigan, Trump's candidate, who lost his primary to a guy that dropped out of the race and stopped running 6 weeks ago?
No, I saw the headline, but I didn't actually read it.
Yeah. Trump endorsed a guy, gave him his full on, MAGA, blah, blah, blah endorsement. The guy's name is Amir Hassan, and I think that that's relevant. And the guy that he was running against two people. The guy that won the election last night dropped out of the race a month ago, very publicly. He said, "I'm not running anymore," and it wasn't close. He won by the guy Amir Hassan won like 30% of the vote. The other guy beat him by like 17 points. And the immediate takeaway that I've heard is, yeah, the MAGA folks were like, nah,
not
MAGA or not, a guy named Amir Hassan.
No, it's a bridge.
Not for us,
bridge
man.
Too far.
Voting for John Smith at the top of the ballot or whatever the fuck his name is, right?
Yes.
So
they're like, I don't even care who that guy could have been a Democrat, and they would have just been like, I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. The only reason he didn't lose to a dead person is because the guy happens to be alive. But he was not running a campaign. He was not doing anything. He had dropped out and he still won.
That's amazing. I did not hear. I mean, I read the headline because I was going through the headlines this morning on all this stuff. But I am curious, like your take on overall take on what's going on in Ohio before we get to our shut the fuck up today.
Yeah, Ohio's batshit right now.
Ohio is always batshit.
No, but they're
Ohio and
Wisconsin, particularly yeah. But I sent you this whole thread, and I don't remember them all, just going up and down the line of all the Republican Congress people in Ohio that are criminal, corrupt, cheating, involved in some sort of sex scandal, sexual abuse scandal. And now the worst one is this guy, Max Miller, who is a congressperson who has a safe R seat. I don't know how safe it is anymore, but it was considered to be a pretty safe seat. He has now been accused of assaulting 3 different women, starting when he was a teenager, where a woman said that he pushed her down the stairs and, that it was like the scariest night of her life. Then all these accusations are separate, by the way. They're unconnected to each other.
Yeah.
Then Stephanie Grisham, who was in Trump's on Trump's staff, she was like the travel secretary or something in his first term, dated this guy and said that he was scary, and she never knew when she woke up what version of Max Miller was going to be, lying in bed with her. And then this guy's ex-wife accused him of assaulting her and accused him of harming their kid. And this starts to get really, really sort of cuckoo bananas right about there, because his ex-wife is also the daughter of Ohio Senator Bernie Moreno. Her name is Emily Moreno. Her father is an Ohio senator who knew of these accusations and didn't really talk about them for 2 years. Right. So now it's all coming out, and I forget what the trigger for it all to come out was, but he's doing this fucking media tour where if you could give him a shovel and tell him to dig, I don't think he would do as good a job. Right. His first media thing over the weekend was a video he recorded in his kitchen, where he was like, these allegations are all untrue. I'll send you the text messages. And like, if this were true, would she have made me dinner 6 nights later? And it's like, bro, that is some abuser talk right there. Like, that is classic abuser dialogue. And then
the second I saw those videos, I went straight to the comments, because he was just getting lambasted. Like, the second that I saw that video post, I was like, dude, this is... Anybody that knows anything about abuse is going to just like unload on this.
Yeah. Yeah. And then he did an interview on Tapper yesterday or the night before, and he somehow made it worse, where he's like, when my daughter broke her collarbone and my wife accused me of it, she had been with my daughter for 9 out of 11 days and brought her to the hospital for treatment, which is against our co-parenting agreement. This fucking guy is mad that when his wife thought that he broke his daughter's collarbone, she took the daughter to the hospital and didn't tell the guy that she thought did it about that. He's mad at the co-parenting agreement, right? And his excuse, like, why isn't he going to drop out, is, hey, Trump in 2015 and 2016 had all sorts of allegations against him and he stayed in. We appreciate resilience in this country.
Dude, it drives me freaking nuts. And then to throw fuel on the fire, I was watching Jim Jordan get interviewed about this, because Jim Jordan was out with Max Miller, campaigning, and, Max Miller's a good guy. We really hope he re-wins this seat, whatever. And what's her name? Casey? Is it Casey? The CNN host basically played the interview on Newsmax about what he said about Graham Plattner, about how the Democrats will just accept any terrible person to yield their power and to do all this stuff. Meanwhile, this guy has even more credible allegations against him, and just watching Jim Jordan fumble over himself, which actually has happened a few times in the last week, which has been fantastic to watch. That guy's a piece of work. I'm
also accused of sexual assaulting wrestlers at Ohio State.
Yeah. Just an awful, that's right. I forgot that he was part of the Ohio State wrestling program. That is, also probably why I think he's a piece of shit, because I was a Iowa State guy anyway. So, but it's just, like the scope to watch the people on Fox News, blast the left on, Graham Plattner and how terrible this is, and how the Democrats will do whatever they have to do to get back in power and run whatever candidate they want. Meanwhile, dude, just continuous allegations from all these dudes on all these Republicans, and it doesn't even stop there. I've seen like 3 or 4 more of like lower level, like House candidates that were, again, like sexual abuse, rape, all these things, and it's just, man, this sucks. It's exhausting.
A guy came out yesterday in. It wasn't Ohio, but it was like Michigan, Tennessee, one of these states. He's dropping his reelection bid. He's a sitting congressperson. He's not going to run for re-election. He's staying in office because of allegations of sexual abuse. In Texas, the Tony Gonzalez, the Republican who dropped out because he was accused of assaulting a staffer, the guy who won that election is also a complete piece of shit. Who I think he's the guy who recently called kids, like, he doesn't have kids. He referred to children in general as cum trophies.
Oh my God.
And yeah,
that is.
Yeah. And
thank God I hadn't seen that, because I would have been
like,
I would have gone straight to
I
my
read it like
Threads
3
account.
times. I was like, oh my God, like, fucking really? Like, these are the people that the Republicans are running.
Yeah.
Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy, the fucking My Pillow guy, is the Republican candidate for governor in Minnesota.
Dude,
right? Like,
awful.
What are we doing?
Awful human.
At least
this should be like rule number 1. If you have a sexual allegation charge against you at any point in time, you are disqualified to run for office. Like, it should be that simple. If there is at least
Plattner and Swalwell leave.
Yes, they left without like everybody else having to force them out. Like, all these other dudes are like, no, I'm good. Like, wait, Trump did it. Fine.
I mean, they got. I mean, Plattner and Swalwell got forced out. Yeah, but
yes,
at least they leave.
Yeah, they got forced out because of the pressure from the party. But like, right. And that, and to their credit, no, not to their credit, but Plattner never actually spoke about it, which is probably the reason why he didn't sound as bad as Max Miller as douchey, because he didn't actually come out and try to defend, like, full on defend himself beyond just saying like he didn't think the allegations were true. But when you start to get into the details of like how it's not true, that's usually telltale sign of like, this is not going to go well for you. So. And you're lying.
Yeah.
So, well, we'll call our. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about as far as what went on yesterday with the primary?
I think that covers it.
Sweet. Then who are we telling to shut the fuck up today, Owen?
So I can't tell if this is a shut the fuck up or a speak the fuck up, but I'm going after the WNBA here.
All right.
and Sophie Cunningham and MAGA Barbie and the WNBA a little bit allowing itself to become co-opted by the Riley Gaines, Sophie Cunningham, white, blonde, right creep population.
Yeah.
And man, the last thing we need is another fucking place for Riley Gaines to pop up and start some bullshit culture war and latch herself on to someone else. And in this case, it's Sophie Cunningham. Look, and Caitlin Clark is mixed in all this, but I think that she, from everything I've read, I think she's trying to not be as much as possible, right? She's trying to just be like, no, let's focus on the core. She got some shit because she went to a Morgan Wallen concert, and he's pretty fucking racist.
He's awful. But
yeah, you can go to a concert, right? Like,
dude, SNL booked him, so like, there's also that.
Yeah, you can go to a concert, and if you're a fan of Caitlin Clark and you're mad that she went to a Morgan Wallen concert, I don't know, fuck off.
Yeah, I would agree.
But Sophie Cunningham, like, yeah, bro, she is obviously like just another MAGA Barbie. It's written all over everything she does, and the WNBA, I think, is in an interesting spot here because people like Sophie Cunningham and Caitlin Clark, who are white, they're getting the views. They're getting people into the arena. And the rest of the league basically is black. And they're about to be thrown under the bus unless the WNBA kind of speaks up and is like, no, we don't want Riley Gaines doing photo ops on a courtside. Because she was this past week. And she's got Sophie Cunningham on her podcast. And, I get it, there's free speech. Right? You're allowed to say and believe whatever you want, but you are also kind of an employee of the league. A basketball player, a baseball player, right? They are subject to contracts. They are subject to limitations on their speech. And, the WNBA, man, I'm not telling them that they have to tell Sophie Cunningham that she can't speak, but they better figure out a way to get out in front of this. because they're going to lose a ton of momentum right away to forces that I don't think that they understand. There is no answer to right-wing media outrage falling in behind Sophie Cunningham and Riley Gaines, and Riley Gaines would be like, see, this is why we need women in sports, and it's like, this has nothing to do with it. That has nothing to do with it. Right. So Sophie Cunningham should shut the fuck up. Okay. Riley Gaines, I've told her to shut the fuck up before. She should just always shut the fuck up. Like, I don't understand. She has this kind of aura that she was this great swimmer who started losing huge when a bunch of men dressed up as women started jumping in the pool and beating her. Nobody knew who she was when she was a swimmer, and her coach was fired for sexual abuse in the locker room, and she stood up on his behalf. The Kentucky coach or the Penn State coach was a sexual abuser in the locker room, and these are the people that the WNBA is allowing to begin to dictate the conversation around their sport. And there's like so much shut the fuck up in here. Shut the fuck up to anybody who tells athletes to shut the fuck up and dribble, like we've heard them say to LeBron. Caitlin Clark is trying to shut up and dribble, and now MAGA is like, well, you have to say something, Caitlin Clark. It's like, what do you want, right? Which one is it? So yeah, this one is like, speak the fuck up, WNBA. Shut the fuck up, Sophie Cunningham. Shut the fuck up, Riley Gaines. And Caitlin Clark, I don't know. I don't know what she should do. Yeah, I feel bad for her because she's just in an impossible spot because the whole league revolves around her now. Yeah, and I'm sure she just wants no part of this. She needs to shut the fuck up because I have a Caitlin Clark jersey and I do not want to burn that or throw it away. All right, so Caitlin, don't say shit. Yeah, did I tell you I took a three? I took a shot from where she hit her record-breaking three. Oh, nice! At Iowa when you were doing your tour with B. That's awesome. Yeah, they have her number 22 on the floor on the court at Carver Arena. So they're like, yeah, take a shot. And if I had to guess, that was probably nowhere even. Did you even make it to like the free throw line? Yeah, fuck off. Yes. But it was an air ball. Fair point. Well, yeah, that sucks too because the WNBA is finally was starting to get some steam. So I do actually hope they figure this out because it's the product has gotten better over the years. So, but when shit gets like that, this is what happens. So, but I just don't want to see them get co-opted by this. Riley Gaines doesn't give a shit about the WNBA. Yeah, she really doesn't. They care about clicks. She's part of that group of people that will say the N-word on camera just to get people outraged because it makes them famous. It's and the WNBA is they're just, if they're not on this shit right away, they're really going to be the middle of a conversation they don't want to be in the middle of. Yep. Well, so what are we talking about next week? We put off isms. Do we want to go back to isms? I think so. Let's do it. Communism, fascism, capitalism. I think that is probably a critical aspect of, because, dude, especially now that the primaries are over, we're going to start seeing these pop up pretty continuously. So I think that's that should probably be our next topic. And, hopefully this will be good for me because I need to, obviously I've learned a lot about these topics in the last few months because of they're being thrown around a lot, but it'll be good for a little bit more of a deep dive this week on all these. So, well, I guess I'll see you next week. See you next week, man.